What's going on, guys? Your boy Amazing. We're back with another video, and in today's video, guys, me doing the updated LR priority ranking based on LR GALLAND's release here, guys. We now have 7 LRs in Grand Cross, and what we're going to do in this video is rank them based on which ones I recommend you guys make in that order. So we're going from 1 all the way to 7, the most priority ranked LR all the way down to the worst. And yeah, we're going to be covering all the ins and outs of each unit and, you know, my recommendations on why you might want to make this one over another one. So if you guys enjoy videos like this, definitely make sure to like and subscribe. Do appreciate all the support on the channel as of late, guys. And yeah, I wanted to change the format a little bit from these videos. If you guys saw the previous videos like these, I would kind of just like talk about them in the game. I think what we'll do this time is we'll do kind of the exact same thing, but we do have a tier list maker here where we can actually list them so you guys can see the whole priority list. So number 1 being the most priority, you know, that you want to do, so the number 1 unit you want to make first, all the way down to the least amount of priority where, you know, that character is not really needed to be, you know, made for LR, guys. So let's hop in and let's go over the characters here, the first one being LR Lostvayne. Alright, guys, so we have LR Lostvayne here in my Grand Cross account, and the thing is with LR Lostvayne, guys, I don't think he's gonna be a very, you know, good character to make LR for nowadays. And the main reason for that, guys, is just because he's been power crept in terms of the other Meliodas releases that we've gotten. I mean, you know, look at Demon King Meliodas, right? Look at Assault Mode Meliodas. He's still very, very good on Demon Team. You know, Demon King Meliodas is still, if not, you know, the best unit in the game, arguably the best. And so LR Lostvayne himself, he's kind of lost a lot of viability in that. I mean, he's not a bad character. All LRs in the game, guys, by the way, are all really good. So let's not get it twisted, you know. Just because I have, you know, Lostvayne here and we're kind of talking about him in not really a good light doesn't mean that all the LRs are bad. Specifically with Lostvayne, I think he's really good in just general, you know, PvE content, and whenever you're using the character, I mean, he's gonna do really, really well. The way LR Lostvayne works is that whenever he gets his skills ranked up, he's actually gonna get critical defense increase up to 90%, and then he also gets attack related stats by 10% for every time the character ranks up skills, which obviously the way Lostvayne works is whenever he gets crit on, he ranks up. So that's gonna be a really big bonus to just his stats and making him hit a lot harder. And then his Holy Relic here is gonna make it so that he gets damage dealt for every orb in the ultimate move gauge, so that's obviously going to be a really big bonus too, considering Lostvayne has a fill gauge single target skill that's Sever as well, and then AoE charge with Infect, which is obviously, you know, another really good skill. And then his ultimate here is just a upgraded secret technique with all stats bonus, guys, and it also has a 80% additional damage per hero skill, which is a lot better than it used to be being 60% at 6 out of 6 before. So yeah, guys, where am I going to rank LR Lostvayne on the actual priority ranking here, man? In my opinion, I think Lostvayne is actually the weakest LR in the game at the moment, just because I don't really think he has too much viability in, you know, a lot of the end game things in the game right now. I think the only viability you're getting out of this Lostvayne character is gonna be kind of in, you know, maybe OG Demon, right? I think OG Demon might be the only place where I'm actually going to be using this character over another. So yeah, man, not really that crazy for, you know, LR Lostvayne nowadays, guys. The main reason being that we have other Meliodas that I think are a little bit better, just in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, unfortunately, Lostvayne has kind of, you know, not really stood the test of time in terms of the power creep. So that's going to be LR Lostvayne there, guys. Let's move on to LR Escanor and where we're going to rank him on the priority ranking. Alright, guys, so we got LR Escanor here. This is the Holy Knight Escanor, the green variant. And the thing is with LR Escanor that I really do like is that he's going to be a very nice character on the human team, guys. So if you don't know, his passive is actually very centered around being on a full human team. This includes the secondary slot character being a human as well for Escanor to get his full potential. And the way he works is that he's going to apply an Eternal Flame on all enemies for them that have not used a skill. And you also just apply one on all enemies when you have the humans in the back and also on the field. So as long as you have your, you know, full human team, you're going to be getting these Eternal Flames, and what they do is they make it so the enemies take more damage, and you also get attack related stats by for each Eternal Flame up to 30%. So you're getting an extra 30% attack related stats on top of that. Now for Escanor's Holy Relic, it's not really that crazy. It's going to increase attack by a value of 50% of the hero's defense at the start of the battle, so obviously that's not going to be super insane, but it's still going to be a way to increase more of his damage just by getting inherent defense in your rolls on your gear, let's say. And then moving on to his skills here, guys, he has the same effect as Lostvayne where he feels Gauge, but it's actually Blast, which is going to be 40% damage dealt per Eternal Flame on the target, and that's obviously going to scale up right there. He also does have a buff strip single target with Ignite application, so he's able to apply 2 to 3 to 4 ignites and also removing buffs with doing a lot more damage as well. And then moving on to his ultimate here, guys, this is Escanor's ult. It's going to ignore 100% of the critical resistance and inflict damage equal to 1260% of attack on one enemy, which is without the combined attack. With the combined attack, it's going to go to 1440% of attack, which is a lot of damage, guys. I mean, we're ignoring, critical resistance, so pretty much a guaranteed crit, and we're doing 1440% of Escanor's attack, scaled to that. So that's obviously going to be hitting very, very hard. Now, in terms of where I'm actually going to rank LR Escanor on the priority list, guys, the thing is with LR Escanor right now in the game is that he kind of has fallen off on the human team variants in PvP, and that was the main place you were really using him, right? I mean, other than that, in content in the game, you can use him in like, Belmos Demon and just like general PvE, and PvP still is viable on the human team, but I don't think he's as, good as he used to be, honestly. So if I had to rank LR Escanor on the list, guys, I'm thinking he's probably gonna fit kind of this like middle range here. I'm honestly thinking maybe 3 or 4. I think for now we'll put him at 4. I'm not obviously I'm not 100% decided on this yet, and we'll talk about it when we go through the rest of the characters here as well, but I don't know, actually. Maybe I do give him 3. I'm gonna give him 3, actually. I'm gonna give him 3. I think, LR Escanor is still very viable. You can run him on the human team, and now that Geldas aren't really being run as much in PvP, you definitely can run it to kind of combat now Fumis and all that. So yeah, no, like, I don't want to, like, discredit LR Escanor completely. I definitely do think that he's still a viable option. So I'm gonna give him number 3, actually, on the priority ranking, guys. So your number 3 priority LR is going to be LR Escanor. Alright, guys, hopping into the next LR that we got here, this is going to be Princess Elizabeth, the LR Liz. Now, I'm not even going to sugarcoat this, guys. Let's just go back to the list right now. I don't even need to explain what this character does, but we're just going to make her the number 1 priority for LRs. I will, briefly explain it just for the people that don't really know about her, but she is one of the best, if not the best, PvE unit in the entire game. I honestly think that if we're talking, characters in Grand Cross that do everything you want them to do in terms of like a specific content in PvE, Liz is gonna do it. She's gonna do literally anything PvE, guys. Very, very broken character. So TLDR, what she does, she's gonna increase allies' basic stats by 30% for every time she heals the ally, which she's able to do with either her ultimate right here, which is gonna, straight up heal the team, or through her single target here, where she heals allies based on her damage dealt. Right, so that's obviously going to be a very good benefit. Another thing as well is that she gains 1 ultimate move gauge whenever she uses a skill, and she has inherent buff strip on her attack card. And then another thing as well is that in all game modes, allies' recovery rate will increase by 20% whenever the hero heals that ally. So you're going to be getting up to 100%. So not necessarily doubling your recovery rate, but you are getting 100% extra recovery rate on your stats right there, which is really, really good. And the main thing that makes LR Liz stand out versus other characters, guys, is the viability she has in all content in the game, mainly PvE, but also in PvP as a backline supportive character because of this Holy Relic here, where because it is active even in the sub slot, it just straight up gives your team 15% HP related stats, and people see this as very valuable considering the meta teams in the game right now. I mean, look at, Demon team where, Gelda kind of needs that HP. Look at Human team where the scaling on the Human team needs a little bit of HP as well. So LR Liz, in terms of just, being a good unit for PvE, and then also alongside that being a viable, backline supportive character in PvP, LR Liz has to go in that number 1 spot, guys. So just a very, very good character. In terms of like what her other skills do, though, she does have a buff cleanse, which gives defense related to, which is obviously very strong. Again, as I mentioned, this is the flood AoE, healing based on damage dealt card, which I think is really good. And then her ultimate is going to provide attack related stats on top of, the heal that she's able to get with gauge fill. So just a very, very strong character, guys, and a free number 1 priority that I would recommend. So if you guys are pretty much starting the game, make LR Elizabeth, man. She is super good, guys. So that is my number 1 LR in terms of the priority ranking. Alright guys, moving on to the next LR we got here is going to be LR Margaret. Now, LR Margaret is a character that I don't really think got much done for being LR. She was a character that was already fairly good before her LR, and after her LR, she didn't really get too much in her kit that actually makes her like a, you know, a super insane unit. And I think LR Margaret, for the most part, has kind of fallen off a lot in terms of her viability in using her, right? I'll go over her kit pretty briefly here though, guys. So increases Goddess allies basic stats by 8% every time an ally uses a buff skill or stand skill, so up to 40%. This was already in her passive before LR. The main thing that she does get after LR is going to be, in addition, increases Goddess allies critical chance and critical damage by 4% for each debuff removed from the hero skill use limit of 5 times. So that's obviously going to be a pretty nice effect because you get up to 20% crit chance crit damage for Goddess allies. And then moving on to her Holy Relic here, guys. Not a super insane one, but for each ally from the 4 Archangels on the battlefield, increases the hero's damage dealt to enemies by 5% and decreases hero's damage taken. So kind of just some damage reduction and damage dealt. Nothing super crazy with that. Moving on to her actual skills here, though, her AoE is going to be charged, but also applying a critical resistance lower debuff effect. And yeah, the only thing that really sucks about, you know, specifically Margaret in this sense is that she doesn't apply the crit resistance debuff before her skill lands. It applies after her skill lands, which is not too good, you know, in the grand scheme of things when we talk about another LR that got a different treatment. But yeah, no, so LR Margaret has that where she's able to apply crit resistance lower and deal damage. Her second skill here, guys, is the Breath of Bless, one of the best cards in the entire game. Just gonna be a straight up, you know, cleanse card, basic stat increase, damage dealt, and damage reduction buff card. Like, honestly, one of the best buff cards in the game, probably second to rank up, because I think this buff card in general, just providing all that it is just hard to top this, man. So just a very strong card right there. And then moving on to her ultimate here though, guys, she's gonna have block effect at 6 out of 6. She's gonna do sever damage, increase all enemies damage taken by 50% at 6 out of 6, and then 945% of attack with sever, obviously, as I mentioned. So yeah, overall though, in terms of where we're actually gonna rank Margaret on the list, guys, I don't think Margaret is a super insane unit. And I think in the grand scheme of things now, especially after, like, you know, kind of goddesses falling off in the meta, and, you know, in PvE, you probably would want to use the red Summer Margaret over this Margaret in you know, specifically Nidhogg, where I think Margaret does shine a lot. Other than that, this Margaret's only really used in Guild Boss, and you don't even need to LR her to use her in Guild Boss, right? I do think that the value she's providing of basic stats and critical chance, critical damage is strong enough to put her at least above Lostvayne, but I think she's honestly number 6 or number 5 right now, guys. It's kind of a toss-up for me. I think for now, I'm going to leave her at number 6, and we'll kind of talk about these last 3 commandment characters here and see where we're going to rank them. But you guys can see we got some, you know, higher priority rankings for these characters at the bottom here. So what we'll do is we'll hop into Glycinia next, and we'll talk about where I'm actually going to rank this character. Alright guys, now hopping into the LR Glycinia here, guys. Let's talk about LR Glox, because I think he actually has jumped up a little bit in terms of the priority ranking because of a specific content in the game. Now, LR Glycinia before wasn't necessarily too, you know, crazy. After getting LR though, he does actually provide a good amount of defense related stats to the entire team. So increases allies defense related by 10% for each surviving ally, increases allies attack related stats by 10% for each ally that has died, and then the bleeding enemies have their critical chance decreased by 30% and critical damage reduced by 40%. So kind of a way, you know, to lower their, you know, attack related ability. You're a little bit more tankier with the team, and I think that is definitely, you know, works kind of you know, really well with the defense related buff he's providing. Moving on to his Holy Relic here, guys, he actually did attain this Holy Relic with his LR, and so what it actually does, which is not going to really be for PvE content, but in PvP, increases basic stats of fairy allies by 5% for every fairy ally participating in the battle, and increases fairy allies critical chance by 5% and critical damage by 10% for every debuff applied to the enemy. So that's obviously pretty good, but we're not thinking about Glycinia necessarily for PvP, even though, you know, his relic is kind of centered for that. But it's another content that I think is very important for Glox, guys, which is going to be the Ratatosker. Now, if we actually look at his skills here, look at his first skill here being Sever Bleed. Now, in the Ratatosker Demonic Beast, you actually do need Bleed, Shock, and Poison, which Glycinia is able to provide the bleeding effect. And the main thing that's super nice about Glycinia specifically, guys, is that because he's providing the defense related buff and giving that bleed that has it right here, I think it's really good because it makes it so that you can run him being a very nice supportive character on the Demonic Beast, and, you you know, your team is a lot more tanky because Glycinia is able to lower their crit chance crit damage when they're bleeding, but also the fact that he's able to give that 40%, or well, yeah, in a demonic beast setting, it is 40% defense related stats, which is really good. His AoE skill here, guys, is not anything too crazy. It is gonna attack seal and buff seal at rank 2 and rank 3, but rank 1 is just straight up an attack percent card, so nothing super crazy with that. And then moving on to his ultimate here, guys, he's gonna have a ruin basic stat lower ultimate now. So after LR, he does gain all enemies basic stats lower by 30% for 2 turns, which, you know, is a pretty important thing right there. So yeah, not too bad for LR Glycinia right there. Alright guys, so where are we actually going to rank LR Glox on the priority rankings here? Now the thing is, I want to actually rank this character, and I might actually move LR Escanor down just a 1 node, because I actually do think right now at the very least that these 2 characters are a little bit more viable at the moment. Now I'm honestly very unsure about LR Galland, guys, so once we do get to LR Galland and I put him in the ranking that I do, I'll kind of explain my reasoning. But what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna put Glox at the number 3, and I'm going to put LR Zeldris in the number 2, putting LR Galland in number 5. Now, I'm going to explain my reasoning specifically for this, because LR Zeldris, I think, is a very, very strong character here, guys. So let's actually pull him up, and we'll talk about him, and then we'll talk about Galland for the final placements. But the main reason why I have LR Zeldris at a number 2 spot, guys, is because he is a meta character on the demon team right now in the game. I think he is a very, very good character in PvE, and you can actually use him on the latest demonic beast, being Ratatoskr, as a main DPS character. And overall, this Zeldris is doing so much that you can really use him in a lot of content in the game, and his songs are kind of just rising as the game gets, you know, even harder content where you need extra stats, you need extra damage, and this Zeldris is able to provide that. Now looking at his passive here, guys, increases the hero's critical chance by 100% for 2 turns at the start of the battle, increases the hero's critical chance by 30% for each orb removed from the enemy's ultimate move gauge with the hero skill use, or up to 90%. The hero's damage dealt increases by 80% as well when attacking a debuffed enemy, and then in addition, the hero's critical damage increases by 120% for 1 turn when the hero moves a skill. Critical damage increases by 30% for each orb removed from the hero's ultimate gauge up to 90, and excludes depletion from the ultimate move use itself. So LR Zeldris, guys, as you can see from that passive right there, is going to actually coincide really well with his Holy Relic here, and this is the main thing that I think makes Zeldris such a very strong character overall, not necessarily just for PvP, but also for the PvE setting, because you're able to get up to 30% allies basic stats, which is a really good effect. I mean, we look at LR Liz, where she's able to give 30% basic stats as well. That is very valuable, and because Zeldris is able to do the exact same thing, I think that gives him a lot of, you know, benefit right there. So the way it works is that whenever he loses gauge or the enemy loses gauge, the allies basic stats increase by 6% up to 5 times, being a 30% total increase, which I think is very, very valuable. Now moving on to his actual skills here though, guys, he does have gauge reduction now on his single target spike card, which is really good because it works again in tandem with his passive. So he's gonna have spike damage, which is ×2 critical damage on his skill while taking gauge. His second skill here is gonna be despair, while also decreasing critical resistance of the enemy before the skill lands. So this is where I was talking about LR Margaret, where I think that hers was kind of nerfed because it doesn't apply the debuff before the skill lands, whereas Zeldris is able to provide that, and I think this is just a way better skill than the one that LR Margaret does have. Now moving on to his ultimate here, guys, it's just going to be straight up spike damage and lowering HP related stats, so nothing super insane on the ultimate right here itself, but I definitely do think that spike is going to be a strong damaging ultimate, and you can pretty much use this across like all content in the game. Alright guys, so yeah, that's pretty much my reasoning for Zeldris right there. I mean, there's a lot of things going on with his kit. He's able to be used in PvP with the critical damage when moving for 1 turn. You know, he gets that critical chance, you know, for 100% on the turn 1 and 2. And then he's able to build up 30% basic stats in PvE related content. And he's able to deal a ton of damage as well. So I think overall, this character is going to be a PvP and PvE unit. And as you guys saw from my ranking here, where I actually ranked the units, I did rank LR Elizabeth above this character. But I think that he is still viable, you know, in both the things that LR Liz is good in too. So LR Liz is good in PvE, Zeldris is good in PvE, Zeldris is good in PvP, LR Liz is good as a backline in PvP. So I do think that inherently that is valuable as well, but I think honestly the main priority would be Liz over Zeldris. Now, in terms of Glycinia and Galland here, guys, let's talk about Galland. You know, I have his kit translated here. We don't actually have it in the game yet. But actually, for what Galland is able to do now, at the start of the battle, your defense-related ability will increase by 20% for 3 turns, and when a demon ally uses a skill, you will receive up to 5 attacks that increase your attack-related ability by 4% for 4 turns. So you can get up to 20% attack-related stats, and each of these are separate 4% attack-related buffs that Galland's able to get. And then if an enemy is affected by the petrification effect, the damage dealt by demon allies will be increased by 50% against them. And also, if you apply the coerce effect to a single enemy once at the start of the battle, that target uses a skill, the debuff effect will no longer be activated, and the character can only attack Galland. And also, they will be reduced by 40% in terms of their damage. So that's going to be a really good effect right there. And then moving on to his skills here, guys, his first skill is actually going to be Amplified Gauge Reduction. So the same thing as Zelder's in terms of gauge reduction, but Galland's going to have Amplified there instead of the, the spike. And that's going to coincide really well with what he has in his passive. His second skill here is going to be spike damage now alongside bleed. So before it was just bleed, now it's spike bleed, which is really good. And then moving on to his ultimate, it's going to be basic stat increase with the cutting effect, which is going to be sever. So that's obviously a very good effect as well. So yeah, in terms of my actual ranking here though, guys, I put Galland in number 5 because I think it's like Galland is going to be a pretty good character in PvP, I would say. Demon team is still a viable team, and he's going to have really good CC for that team as well, even considering he doesn't have a Holy Relic. I mean, look at Gloxinia. Gloxinia had about like 72k CC without a Holy Relic. With a Holy Relic, he's at like 74, right? So that's a big jump. So I think Galland, even without a relic, is going to be at about like 70, 71, maybe 72k CC. And that's still really good for the demon team. Being able to, buff the demon team and also provide attack-related stats for himself based on the allies attacking is going to be very, very good. So I think you're going to be able to use him across most PvE content in the game. I think he's going to be really good, in PvP as well on demon team. And I think he actually has viability on Ratatoskr. We just don't know 100% sure yet. And so that's why I actually gave him the number 5 ranking here, where I don't know 100% if he's going to be really, really strong for it, but I think he could be an option. So there we go, guys. That's going to be my LR priority ranking for all the characters here. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section below of this ranking. I mean, it changes every month, guys, depending on the meta of what, is kind of going on in the game. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, though, LR Liz is always going to be a number 1. And then from 2 to 7, it's always going to be different, right, from that point on. So yeah, man, that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys did enjoy. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below of the priority ranking here, and where you guys would rank the LRs in terms of which ones you should be making first. With that out of the way, guys, that's going to be it. And I'm going to see you guys on the next one, man. Peace out, and have a great rest of your day, guys. See you later, man.